behavior was completely out of sync with the environment. Reckless behavior. I've been to jail. I was very involved in drug and alcohol abuse. My frontal cortex was moving 150 miles an hour. When it's overactive, good luck trying to make good decisions. You're like a Ferrari with no brakes.
Where did Angie come into the picture? Was she out hanging out in the jail cell with you?
What if we had met in jail?
Meet Rachel and Angie, keynote speakers and neuro experts from Braincode centers.
With years of experience, they specialize in helping others unlock their brain's full potential. Stay tuned.
We're talking about brain mapping and neurofeedback. What is neurofeedback?
The neurofeedback is the
Speed things up, slow things down. How do you do that?
So all humans are capable of producing the same brain waves. Delta are your deep, slow, restorative relaxation sleep waves.
Is that like meditation too?
Theta is more meditation. Delta is more sleep.
Let's talk about children. Is this something that kids can use as well too?
We have so many kids. I'd say 30% of our population is kiddos, mostly working on ADHD, defiance, emotional regulation issues.
Would you say that this helps target childhood trauma sooner than later?
In a case where if the parents are,
How does this connect with sexual health? Does it or does it not?
to your point,
Welcome to another episode of a Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada. And as usual, we're bringing experts from all over the world to talk about health, wellness, and beauty. So today, we have a few guests here that are visiting us. These are my friends. I see them at all the different conferences, and they hit a certain special spot that I'm very passionate about, and you guys know this. I love anything that has to do with like brain health, emotional health, cognitive health. You know, for me, you want to be able to perform at your peak levels. You want to be able to be sharp as a tack. And they have something here. It's not just like, we're not just talking about products. We're talking about the actual data for you to actually measure your performance. Today we have Rachel and Angie here. They're part of a company called Braincode Sensors. Ladies, welcome.
thank you so much for having us. We're
Yes.
super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about brain mapping, right? And neurofeedback. What is neurofeedback?
So the brain map is the way in which we're able to analyze exactly what's going on electrically with the brain. If you think about the things that we struggle with, right? Anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, sleep. There is a neurological root reason why that's happening. And so we're looking at the waveform of EEG activity to help us understand exactly the root cause of why that's happening for our clientele. So the brain map's super simple, like any analysis. It's just a baseline. That baseline allows us to read the activity. Is there areas that are overactive, underactive? And then how is that related clinically to the pattern the person is experiencing from a symptomology standpoint? So that's just the baseline. And then neurofeedback is the treatment to help correct and restabilize the brainwave activity.
Amazing. Amazing. So, okay, this is going to be good. So, obviously, anyone in the wellness space, every single time I hear them talk about what they do, the first thing that comes to mind is like, okay, well, what made you want to get into this? So now I got to hear like the journey of, number one, I want to hear kind of like your journey as being the founder, and then how you guys kind of came together, because I see you guys on social media and you guys are like never separated. You guys are always together.
Which is funny because we live in two totally different states.
And the crazy, initially, I thought you guys were like sisters, twins, because you guys look so much alike. You know, you really do.
I think at some point when you're best friends and you work together, you meld into one person. So so I don't know if 10 years ago we didn't look as much alike, but then you spend enough time together.
Yeah. You know, I spent a lot of time with my dog, and he kind of started looking like me a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
I
So,
like it.
how did it happen?
So my story is bipolar disorder. I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 15 years old.
Okay.
I struggled with my mental health growing up from a really young age. I grew up in a very stable home. I had a wonderful family system, but my behavior was completely out of sync with the environment that I was set up in to probably have success, right? Reckless behavior. I've been to jail a number of times. I was very involved in drug and alcohol abuse. I mean, I was truly, my parents would say, like, our daughter is going to be dead or locked up if we don't figure out what we're going to do with her.
And this was around 15?
I mean, it started before that, but yeah, 15, you start, and then you get a license, like game over, you're in trouble. And yeah, I will never forget sitting in a jail cell. And I just remember like truly asking God, like, if you just get me out of the situation, like I swear I'm gonna get my life together. Like I have to figure this out. And then I wouldn't again. Right. And so finally my parents sat me down and they just said, Rachel, like, are you thinking before you're acting? What is going on? And that really simple question is what helped me explore other ways to address my mental health. I had tried talk therapy, I had tried medication, I had tried supplements, and nothing was moving the needle for me.
Oh, wow.
So I'm so grateful that my parents found out about brain mapping and neurofeedback. I went and did it. I had nothing to lose, right? And I thought it was kind of a weird brain training thing. I had no clue what to expect. I ended up going through the therapy and I was really intentional about it. And at the end of it, I did a second brain map, and the new brain map showed not one pattern of clinical bipolar.
Oh, really?
It was the first time ever I felt like I was in control of my brain instead of it being in control of me.
Wow.
So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm going to go figure out how to get into this field so I can help other people just get in control of their own brain health. So yeah, it started from truly a story of suffering, and we've grown to be one of the largest neurofeedback practices in the country. And every single day, we just love what we get to do, helping,
I love that.
helping other people.
So obviously, Braincode centers weren't around when you were going through your own brain mapping. So who do we give credit to? Because this was a while back, right?
Yes, it was. So neurofeedback was founded a while ago. So I think people think that neurofeedback and brain mapping is just this brand new cutting edge technology. It's not. The science has been around for a while.
Right.
I went to a clinic in Dallas. Well, not even a clinic. It was just a private practice practitioner, and she was awesome. I did it in her house,
Okay.
just as a sole practitioner. So it changed my life. But yeah, there's a lot of clinics popping up for sure, and a lot more people are starting to utilize the technology.
Right, right. And when you say bipolar, everyone hears this, and a lot of people utilize it more as sometimes just like in passing. Oh, yeah, that person has bipolar. This, that. What were some of like the symptoms that uh, you experienced that was like, okay, I'm bipolar, or someone diagnosing you as bipolar?
Yes. So there's a handful of different types of bipolar, bipolar 1, bipolar 2. Mine was a little bit more mild, I would say, where I would be very, very, very impulsive. So I'd say impulsivity was probably the number one marker of my symptomology that I had. I then would get into waves of depression after making really awful decisions. Now,
Okay.
also, I'm abusing drugs and alcohol, so there's a play into that as well. From a neurological pattern standpoint, my brain, my frontal cortex was moving 150 miles an hour. So there's a brainwave called high beta. And when it's overactive, especially in your frontal lobe, right, the decision maker of your brain, I mean, good luck trying to make good decisions.
Oh,
You're
wow.
like a Ferrari with no brakes, having
Oh,
some fun.
that analogy is like, oh, that's very dangerous. A Ferrari
Yeah.
with no brakes. I
It
don't want
wasn't,
that.
it wasn't good.
Reckless. Yeah.
So okay, so Rachel, where did Angie come into the picture? Was she out, hanging out in the jail cell with you, or how did that work?
What if we had met in jail? So the difference, Rachel and I definitely had different, similar upbringings in beautiful families and supportive families. She was a rule breaker. I was more of a rule follower. I grew up, just yes, following rules, but definitely had a lack of caring about school, about life. I was pretty, I would say honestly, apathetic, just kind of floating through. Ended up going to college. While I was in college, I was 19 years old. I suffered a skull fracture, traumatic brain injury
Oh, wow.
that left me in a walker with a lot of different cognitive deficits. And truly, I mean it. If I could go back right now and change that situation, I wouldn't. It impacted me so incredibly. It made me very aware of my brain health, my abilities. It also brought me kind of into the less Western medicine field,
Right.
in that, I was kind of told, hey, this might be as good as it's going to get. And my mom was crunchy before it was cool to be a crunchy mom. So she heard, this is as good as it's going to get. And she was like, absolutely not. We do not accept that. So I found a lot of different modalities that really helped me gain back brain health and cognition and memory and all these different things. So went through the rest of my undergrad, went through my master's program, having healed in a pretty profound way and looking for what was next. And whether you believe in God or the universe, I knew there was something, I knew I was going to do something with it. I just didn't know what. And I had a professor who I was close with in grad school who introduced me to kind of an in-between person who said, hey, there are these girls doing this brain mapping and neurofeedback thing. You're neuro-based. You should check this out. Rachel and I met. And it was, if you know your twin flame, when you meet, it was game over. At that point, that was it. We met and
That's pretty cool.
kind of grew from there.
Nice. And how long ago was that?
Was that 10 years ago now? 8 years ago?
8, yeah, maybe 8.
Yeah.
Wow. So eight years of nonstop getting out there and doing your thing. Amazing. So we're talking about brain health. And when it comes down to brain health, there's different parts of brain health, right? And I want people to kind of understand the difference of some of these things. Like when we're talking about, cognitive health versus mental health, give me like the definition of that, because obviously cognitive health, like I'm more big into cognitive health. Well, no, I'm kind of big in both, but the cognitive health is like I'm always trying to make sure like I'm focused, I'm thinking, I'm sharp as a tack. But then the mental health, for the listeners of yours, can you guys explain that, someone?
I would say one of the ways that we like to describe this is software versus hardware. Okay. A lot of the things that we think to do for mental health and cognitive health are more software updates on a computer. We are eating right. We are meditating. We're going to counseling. We're doing a lot of things that are fantastic, but not necessarily hitting the hardware, right? If we have a hardware issue, Rachel being bipolar, she could have taken all of the supplements in the world. She could have meditated. She could have gone to counseling. That wasn't going to address the deeper down root issue of what was going on.
Okay.
Neurofeedback, brain mapping. We are getting into the hardware. We're looking at neurologically, what is someone's patterns? And those could have been determined in early childhood, right? If you had inner utero trauma, early developmental trauma, if there, different things that happened, that Rachel just had a cognitive pattern that was already there that, wasn't, necessarily serving her well. There are no bad brains or good brains. All brains are good. That's what brain mapping is really getting to the root of what's going on and then addressing it on that neurological level versus sometimes we can talk ourselves to death and it's not really going to make that change that's necessary.
Right. So okay. So we're looking at brain health, between mental health and cognitive health. But then there's also a part that I was reading about on your website about peak performance, like athletes and people that are very competitive. Where would that fall under and how does that work?
So think about, because I think the question that you're asking too, the brain is so complex. There's chemicals in the brain. There's hormone production. There's, supplements that you can take. There's ways that you can biohack peptides. I mean, there's so many different things that can impact brain function.
Right.
We are specialists in EEG activity. Okay. So while EEG activity, so brain waves, is also going to have a domino effect on blood flow, on hormones, on all of that, people ask us questions like, well, can you measure the chemicals in my brain? Can you measure dopamine levels? That's not what our EEGs are looking at, but of course the brain is holistic, right?
What does EEG stand for?
Electroencephalogram.
Okay.
Yeah, EEG. So it's kind of like a EKG of the heartbeat, EEG of brain waves.
Interesting.
Yes. Okay. So ultimately, when we are seeing different symptoms, whether it be peak performance, anxiety, sleep, we're looking at how do we optimize your brain waves if peak performance is your goal versus for somebody else, peak performance might be because of the absence of an anxious wave. So it looks so different from person to person because everybody has completely different brain patterns.
Interesting.
So the way that we help people with peak performance goals, it's all going to be basis their EEG. Right? Some people, maybe we need to speed their brain up to yield the same effect. Some people, we need to slow that bad boy down for you to get dialed in and crisp and clean in that focus. So it really is just dependent on who the person is, what their goals are, but also we really iron out what does peak performance look like for you? Because it might look so different for Sam versus the other person standing in the other room or the firefighter, right? It looks different across the board.
Very interesting. So, okay, you said speed things up, slow things down. How do you do that?
Yeah. So the neurofeedback treatment, that's exactly right. So all humans are capable of producing the same brain waves. Delta are your deep, slow, restorative relaxation sleep waves. So if or when you're in the best part of sleep, the brain should be producing really slow moving delta.
Is that like meditation too, like the delta wave?
Theta is more meditation. Great question.
Theta,
Delta is more sleep. Theta is kind of that drifting into sleep wave where you're not fully asleep, but you're not fully awake, kind of a daydreamy type place. If you're good at meditating and you're in a meditative state, you should be producing slow moving theta waves. Alpha is kind of a receptor. So alpha is the bridge that helps move the brain up into the fast, down into the slow, almost like a gear shifter in a car. If your gear shifter is working well, everything feels really lubricated, moving well. If your gear shifter is sticky, that ride will feel very sticky and kind of choppy. Beta should be clean, focused, motivational energy. Coffee actually momentarily puts our brain into a beta state. So when we wake up and we're like, where's my coffee? What your brain is saying is, I want to be in flow state. I want to be focused. I want to be motivated, and is looking for something to do that. And then high beta is anxiety, irritability, defense mechanisms, hypervigilance. It's the most physiologically uncomfortable place for us to be, but also one of the most common things that our society deals with. We really shouldn't be producing high beta unless we're actually in danger. And some of us walk around in that state of kind of fight or flight and survival all the time. So when we're talking about changing those things, someone who's, let's say, is producing theta all the time, we want to be producing theta when we're trying to meditate. If you're in a meeting with, your boss and your brain is sitting in theta, that's going to feel very frustrating because you're not going fast enough to really retain information and be focused, okay? Versus if you are also, let's say, sitting in a meeting with your boss and your brain is in high beta, your heart's pounding, your brain is racing, you're also not going to be able to focus. So that is what the QEEG, the quantitative electroencephalogram, does, is it shows us where is your brain kind of sitting all the time. And it doesn't matter if we map you on the best day you've had in a while or a kind of crummy day. We're not only looking at what your brain is producing at that moment, we're looking at the patterns that your brain has ingrained over time.
Okay.
So then from that, our treatment team, we create a series of individualized protocols for that person. Kind of like a fitness trainer, right? That we're going to analyze your body and then create a program. We're going to analyze your brain, create a series of training programs, neurofeedback treatment, in order to correct those patterns. And Rachel, I'll let you talk a little bit about what exactly does neurofeedback look like.
Think of neurofeedback. Hopefully, if people are listening, you've heard of Pavlov's dog, right? We are all capable of having learned behaviors. Like, you don't wake up and have to relearn how to walk, talk, think, eat, any of that, right? Your brain already knows how to do that. I have my little 1.5-year-old at home, right? And I always laugh because what do I do when I'm helping encourage him how to walk, right? I get my eyes big, I clap, I say, you got it, buddy, come on. All I'm doing is rewarding him. I'm not giving him a direction manual on how to walk with the instructions, right? Hey, buddy, looks like you fell over a little bit. It's because your eye contact went down, proprioception went off. No, no. We love reward.
Yeah.
Everything about our society, why we love Instagram, all of it is because of reward. Our centers in our brain are designed to like that. And there's a reason for that, right? And so we know that if we reward the brain, then it can learn. So then what's the catalyst in which to reward the brain? That's when we utilize neurofeedback. So it does involve hardware, software. We have a remote program where our clients can, use a headband at the house, little EEG sensors. Nothing ever is going into the brain. Mm-hmm. So
I was just going to ask that, actually.
Yeah. Some people think it's reward stimulus, like I'm stimulating the brain to reward you. No, the reward comes in the form of auditory and visual feedback.
Okay.
So you download our app, and then all of your custom protocols are sitting there in the app. So you go do a session, you put your headbands on, you pull up the app. Let's say I want to get dialed in and focus. Maybe I'd click on my personal focus protocol for that day. And then all of a sudden I pick a library of a video. Could be literally someone could watch this podcast and train their brain at the same time.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
But now my brain has to fall within a target threshold that I've challenged it with in order to get that reward. So the feedback will go away and get really small and unclear on the screen. You can't hear anything when your brain is not hitting the quantitative thresholds.
Oh, hold on. So I'm watching this video, and if it's not hitting it, it's just like it just turns off like the audio.
It's like your brain has the remote control of the experience that it's having.
Okay, so it's like forcing you to get into the right state, pretty much.
I'd
So
say
you're wearing this
encouraging.
thing,
It's
though.
encouraging. It's
Encouraging.
bringing your brain there.
I like that, encouraging. So this is very interesting. I can't wait to try it.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best.
Yeah.
But it's so cool, right? Because people will think, how does my brain figure it out? I think sometimes people have this anxiety, like, what if I can never get the podcast to play? Like, what if my brain can never do it? Well, luckily there's an algorithm in our system that we've created where, let's say, for example, if you're a numbers person, let's say for you, Sam, you have 15 microvolts of beta or high beta. And that's what allows you to think and come up with questions. But it's also maybe the thing that makes it hard for you to fall asleep at night. Well, then if 15 is your standard, I might set a threshold for Sam saying you're only going to get rewarded if you hit 10. If your brain struggles to get down to 10, then my system's going to kind of tease it a little bit and say, okay, you can get rewarded then if you get 12. And then your brain will slow it down a little bit and hit that 12 mark. Right when it does, you see and hear that reward. Then all of a sudden we're going to get to challenge it again and say, okay, but like, bud, you got this now. Now I need you to bring it down to 10.
Wow.
So we're constantly changing the data points in which you have to hit in order to get that reward. Think about if you're like you're shooting a target or something like that, and then you're trying to get within that target more accurately.
Right.
That's really what we're doing with brainwaves, is just creating higher levels of neurological adaptability and flexibility by rewarding it to give it encouragement when it's doing that.
That's amazing. So my mind right now is like it's going all over the place, thinking about what else can you do, with your brain going through this type of process, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about like Navy SEALs and people like astronauts that are always like trying to enhance their cognitive health, their overall brain health. Where I met this guy, actually. He was a military guy, and he set up his whole house into like a biohacking type of house. But he wasn't really a biohacker. What he was trying to do, and he was a medic also. He was a military guy, and then he also worked in the fire department. His goal was to remember every single pediatric drug dose, which if you're in the medical field, you know that's like nearly impossible. Yeah, because everything's
imagine.
weight-based and everything else.
What?
So the guy actually was able to do it,
Oh.
but he was doing different things. He was in a float tank. And I'm just thinking right now, it's like, what else can you do with your brain going through these type of trainings that you guys have? Have you seen people actually try to really enhance like their memory and everything else with that?
That would probably be more in kind of the peak performance, right? A lot of people come to us because there's something going on. Angie, I'm really struggling with anxiety. I'm really struggling with depression. Or I had a stroke, right? And now I'm having, these effects of this stroke. A lot of, let's say, the professional athletes that we see. I mean, you see professional athletes now, if everybody has access to everything, right? All of them, I would say, have a similar access to the peptides and the training and all the things. So what sets us apart? Honestly, your brain is your best asset. And if you are not optimizing your best asset, you're missing a very major component. Golf is a really good example, Rachel and our golfers, that you watch people get to the 18th hole. They are in the lead and they hit a bad tee shot. You know how long you have to walk from your tee shot to your next shot? If your brain is going into fight or flight, if you are going into your sympathetic nervous system, you start to shake, your brain starts to race, all these things happen. Then you watch, 8 shots later, they just lost $10 million. What the heck happened? That person did not have control over their central nervous system,
Wow.
right? So that's what we're seeing with kind of this realm of peak performance, that people are going, okay, I'm already, let's say, maybe at the top 1%. How do I get that even a little bit better? How do I make my memory more crisp? If you're watching, quarterbacks, how do I get a half a second reaction time better? That is neurofeedback training. That is brain training. There's actually a documentary on Netflix called The Quarterback. Kirk Cousins has been doing neurofeedback for years and talks about cognitive peak performance, that people are doing this across the world, right? Obviously, I believe that Braincode Centers is doing it the best, but there's a lot of people who are starting to utilize this technology going, as a culture, we focus neck down, we have to focus neck up.
Wow. I love that. And I could see a lot of like CEOs, business owners really benefit from something like this to really just up the performance. And that's almost like a competitive advantage that you can have,
100%.
when you're in business. But let's talk about children, right? Because I think, you were talking about, your child. And is this something that kids can use as well too?
We have so many kids. I mean, from age 5 and up, I'd say usually the best age to start really is like 6, 7 years old. But I'd say 30% of our population is kiddos, mostly working on ADHD, defiance, emotional regulation issues, right? Parents will do anything for their kids.
Yeah.
And if their kid is struggling or really needing support at school, oftentimes it's really hard getting consistent feedback from teachers if your kid's struggling. And so people will find us usually after they've tried a number of other different things, right? Because you don't hear about brain mapping and neurofeedback as your first line of defense. And then we're able to help just create flexibility for these kiddos from such a young age. I will still get text messages this day to some of my first clients that I ever saw before we built the company, and I was just a sole practitioner. And I'll get pictures of their kids like graduating, highest in their class, like going to med school. And these were kids that were, I mean, paralyzed by their own struggles with their mental health stuff as a young kid. So it's been so cool just to watch these kids get freed up from things that potentially, right, if you don't catch it early. Thankfully, my parents did it when I was a teenager. Can you imagine if I had struggled for another 10, 15 years? I mean, then you're in your 30s and a lot of your life has been kind of utilized in that capacity. So it's always a treat truly to get to work with kids, because then you get to just set a really good foundation.
Yeah, children end up having certain traumas, right? Growing up, they see things, parents fighting or whatever it is. Would you say that this helps target childhood trauma sooner than later?
In a case where if the parents are bringing their kids to us and it's like the identified patient, as we would call it as licensed professional counselors, but the kid is, say, 8 to 10 and they're every day going back into their really stressful household, that's going to be a difficult case.
Right.
Now, can we still help the kid? Yes. But ultimately, you're in a really toxic environment. And if it's every single day
It's
impacting
self-feeding
you,
the
yes.
child, yeah.
So I would still argue the fact that, of course, that's going to help like regulate their little nervous systems, but ultimately it's still going to be really hard for that. They're going to still need some work to do when they're
Right.
older. I'll never forget, though, there was this woman that I worked with, and she was in a domestic violence situation. And same thing, she was desperate. She just came in for sleep and anxiety, but I figured out a little bit about what she had going on. And I said, this is not going to save your life. This is not going to help you, because every single day after you come to your neurofeedback, you're going to go back into a really unfortunate situation. And we started training, but I set just expectations really light. Within 2 months, she came into me. She goes, I filed for divorce. She's like, I have been in this marriage for 10 years. I would have never done this if my brain hadn't had an ounce of the calm where I could actually think rationally.
Wow.
So while sure, we probably could have done a lot more work with her, regulating her brain allowed her to get that much healthier to where now she could actually change her life.
Yeah.
So it's some situations like that we're just one of the building blocks for life change from a bigger capacity.
Yeah. It allows that person to make that rightful decision, or they're clear-minded and they're able to get past it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the kids, we live in this world where kids are like heavily medicated, and you were talking about ADHD. So to begin with, what have you guys seen with so many kids being heavily medicated, and how has this actually helped maybe potentially reduce some of those medications?
So I believe that, first off, parents love their kids and would do anything. And when you are presented with it's either meds or meds, which a lot of times that's the case. And listen, there is no shame in the medication game. I believe that we do what we can with the information that we're given, right? So ADHD is a very specific pattern in the brain, which is actually overproduction of theta wave activity, which is the second to slowest wave. That's why Adderall, Ritalin are stimulants, because they speed the brain up so that kid can focus. I would say ADD, ADHD is the most misdiagnosed thing that we see across the board. That's also probably social media, that every person in the whole world, well, I have a hard time focusing. Well, I have a little bit of a hard time with task completion, right? So yes, kids, but also adults. 90% of people that we map with a diagnosis of ADD, ADHD do not show that neurological pattern. However, think about now an overstimulated kid, already overstimulated. Their brain is beta, high beta, on the cingulate. and now you add in a stimulant. We have kids bouncing off the walls, right? And I hear this from parents that, wow, medication didn't really do what we wanted it to do. Now they have insomnia. Now there's other things. But don't worry, we added in these other meds to counter the side effects of that med. It's just really unfortunate versus, because honestly, psychology, psychiatry is the only field of medicine that we don't measure the organ that we're going to treat. You would never go in for knee surgery and then go, hey, we're just going to start cutting, see what happens. Like things are going to get spicy. You'd go, can we please take a look at what's going on before we do that?
Yeah.
For some reason, with mental health, with cognitive health, we don't do that.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely wild to us. Versus with neurofeedback, we always start with a brain map. Let's see what the baseline is. Let's see what your brain is actually telling us so that we can create protocols around that. So really, I would say, first off, we're giving parents information that they probably never have gotten. Here is what is actually going on in your child's brain. And there's no shame. If they're already on a med, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how that med is actually affecting their brain.
Right.
Okay, here is our plan to then ideally get them off of that med and get their brain so regulated that, again, they are now back in control of the vehicle that they're driving versus the vehicle controlling them.
Right. What would you say that neurofeedback would give a better diagnosis of a child having ADHD versus the 15-question test that they give them?
I mean, we're biased,
It's
but absolutely.
Yeah.
Not even a question in our mind.
Right. So why do you think they don't utilize neurofeedback to actually diagnose these kids?
You know, I think, and it would be more like the brain map, but I think honestly, there's just a lack of education, which
Yeah.
is why we're super excited about even being on podcasts like this, to where maybe this is the first time somebody's ever even heard of that being an option.
Yes.
So between just lack of education, we talk to doctors and MDs all the time, and they're like, I didn't learn this in school ever once.
Wow.
I mean, that's really crazy if you think about it. So the other big hang up, which a lot of people are going to ask, is, you know, why is this not recognized by insurance? There is a code for neurofeedback. There is a code for QEG. As business owners, the code gets paid nothing back, so you can't have a sustainable company.
Right.
So then there's the, you know, revolving unfortunate door of you bill, you don't do anything, so it's cash pay. Well, insurance kind of runs the pharmaceutical world and kind of the medical world. So that's kind of hard for us. And that is what is preventing the larger capacity of knowing about it.
Right. Interesting. So, you know, with ADHD, we were talking about kids getting on these medication like Adderall.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I saw, you know, especially after graduating high school, in college, people were just really abusing the Adderall.
Yeah.
So it leads to an addictive personality where they have addiction. How does your device, what you guys do, how does that work towards addiction? And not just Adderall, you know, that's just one, but any kind of addictive personality that someone might potentially be having.
Yeah, so we've worked with addiction across the board, right? That a lot of addiction treatment is more behavioral, right? Focus on the behavior. How do we stop drinking? How do we stop utilizing drugs? And at the end of the day, neurofeedback is always getting back to the root. There is a reason why we are constantly trying to put something synthetic in. We are trying to regulate our brain in a way that our brain is not able to regulate itself. So honestly, a brain map is like a visual form of grace, just to understand, why do I even want this substance in the first place? It makes sense that Rachel and I could look at a brain map, and if somebody utilizes any type of substance, we could probably tell you what you like. Hey, I see your brain map. I bet a glass of wine feels so good to you. Oh my gosh, it does. I bet it takes at least 3 glasses for you to start to feel it. People see very seen and very heard with that information. Similarly, that if somebody likes an opiate, if somebody likes a stimulant, it is because their brain is doing something and they are unable to regulate it themselves. So we want to put something synthetic in. So is neurofeedback all of a sudden, if you've been abusing alcohol for years, going to make you, hey, I no longer like alcohol? No. Is it going to get to the root of why our brain craves that substance in the first place? Yes. So it's really a perfect additional modality to behavioral treatment, right? If you are in AA, if you have a counselor, great. How do we add in another modality, brain mapping, neurofeedback, to truly get to the root and address it there, so that those other behavioral aspects, those other software updates can truly take hold?
Right. Wow. That's powerful. So, okay, so we're talking about addiction, And you mentioned alcohol, some of the drugs. What about smoking? Same thing, behavioral, I would
Very
say.
much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Nicotine, a stimulant.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To move on to the next, obviously, you see my fire department gear here. Retired about 6 years ago, did 12 years out on the road. And, we dealt with something, and I even deal with it still today.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've learned how to live with and control, which is PTSD,
Mm.
right? So this is something that we see with a lot of first responders. How does what you guys do go hand in hand with, PTSD?
Yes. So we actually have we have thousands of first responders that we work with. I actually don't know if you already know that, but as a friendship conversation. But we started working with one of the largest PD agencies in Colorado. What had happened was one of their wellness individuals, was looking for other ways to address his own mental health. So he had been, an on-duty officer for 20 years, was involved in a shooting accident, left him paralyzed from the waist down.
Oh, wow.
He used to use running as his coping mechanism. Paralyzed from the waist down, now you got to find some different ways. And so he was struggling to the point where his wife sat him down and was like, we have to figure out what to do. She was worried he was going to take his own life. He ended up finding out about brain mapping and neurofeedback, and truly he said it gave him a second chance at life. And so he made it his truly mission to help other agencies learn about this type of modality.
Wow.
The reason that cops and firefighters like this, right, is you don't necessarily have to talk about anything. And whether we like it or not, first responders still don't want to talk about their problems.
That's
They don't
true.
want to talk about
Yeah.
what they've seen. It's just a little bit more of the personality type and how they're wired. Neurofeedback is amazing because you're able to get the brain to regulate itself. And then what we see as therapists is now all of a sudden talking about something that happened to them 5 to 10 years ago doesn't feel so heavy. It doesn't dysregulate them. So then they're more, welcoming to a counseling experience. So I'd say probably 50% of the clientele that we work with to this point, because we have huge government contracts that now with, I think, over 15 agencies, we see so many cops and firefighters.
wow.
It is one of our
That's
favorite
amazing.
truly. These guys are getting to sleep at night. These guys are not on their 15th marriage because they, cannot get their stress handled.
Right.
It's just been so enjoyable too. And I was chatting with Carlos before this because typically first responders are still more male dominant, right? And wellness is more female dominated. And so to see not only really strong, powerful responders that are typically less vulnerable do a therapy like this, and not just do a therapy, love it and go tell their 20 buddies about it, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, we love our love of our first responders. When we do your brain map after this, we'll get to see trauma
boy.
patterns.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
I'm curious to see what you guys are going to find.
Yeah.
So with the first responders, one of the things you said, it'll help them sleep better. And I can tell you in the fire department, because we stay there 24 hours,
Yes.
right? There's a lot of sleep deprivation, especially if you're at a busy station. So does it help with the sleep deprivation as well too?
We get this question all the time. It's not going to change your shift schedule.
Right.
And it doesn't need to. You picked that job for a reason. So you're not going to ever have this perfect, I sleep from 9 to 5 or whatever situation. What then we need to do is help you with sleep onset so you can fall asleep faster, so that you can shift into deeper stages of sleep more quickly. So you can maybe stay in REM a little bit better, so that then when you're off shift, then you actually can transition better instead of being all jacked up with your circadian rhythm. So we're controlling what we can control with like sleep latency, deep sleep, REM sleep, in the midst of having an unideal shift schedule. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. I like that. So, one of the other parts that we do at Liquivita, because we're big into all these different sectors in health, is sexual health, right? Which there's a component of sexual health when you start talking about your libido, which is your sex drive, your sexual desire, which sometimes it's not hormone related. It's sometimes that are certain thoughts where your brain just doesn't allow, male or female to perform at that point in time. And for the males, one of the things is they'll start experiencing potential erectile dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
How does this connect with sexual health? Does it or does it not?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We, to your point, obviously be working with other practitioners, make sure there's not something hormonally going on that you need to. We can actually see hormone patterns as well, where then we would tee them up and say, hey, you need to go see Liquivita and their team because they need to handle more of the functional side of things. we're going to be that neurological component. But you're right. Sometimes you worked on testosterone, you worked on libido, you regulated hormones. And then now all of a sudden somebody's confidence is shot because they've been struggling, with their wife or husband at home. Now all of a sudden in a sexual setting, like they can't regulate themselves.
Right.
That then is where it's like it's a brain connection thing. And we would look at it more like we then just have to help work on the brain to develop another level of confidence. So we're going to look at attachment centers of the brain, but also how then do you just regulate a nervous system that's been hijacked in those specific situations.
Right. Because it could be someone who, let's say, hasn't been sexually active for quite a while, feels unattractive. So let me ask you this. With this, would an individual like that who purchases the technology from you guys, would they wear it? Well, that kind of be crazy if they're having those issues, but to get the actual data of what's happening at that particular time, would it make sense to wear it when you're going to be, sexually active,
So no, you don't need to do that. That's a really good question. And I think I said earlier, it doesn't matter when we do the brain map, okay? As we are not only looking, and we get this from people all the time, well, I'm not feeling anxious right now. I'm not feeling depressed right now. Are you still going to be able to see it in my brain map? Absolutely.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, right? Also, I mean, for yourself, you've been out of the fire department, I think you said 6 years.
Yeah.
That does not mean that neurological pattern is not still there, right? That is still a component. It's kind of little imprints on your brain. And we are experts in looking at that data.
Right.
So even if someone is not in that specific neurological state, their brain still shows patterns of it, and we can analyze that. We don't map people while they're sleeping. We can still see their sleep patterns. So it's not a stress test. We're not asking the brain to get into a certain state so that we can see it. We're going to see it either way. So they don't necessarily have to. We actually have people test us where they're like, I don't want to fill out any of the paperwork. I just want to see what you see. Fine, sounds great. I will just tell you what I see. The brain can't hide anything from us, so we're going to see it either way.
Nice. Are there any other type of wearables or any other technology that go very well with this?
We are obsessed with the Oura Ring. So
I got
good
mine
for
here
sleep
too.
tracking.
Yeah, I love my Oura Ring.
One of our favorite things is we will get screenshots of clients that send us their sleep scores for the next day after starting neurofeedback. And to not only see the data points across the course of time with the journey with us, right? Because we get to see measurable, objective data across the client's journey. But then you see other wearables and that data also shift, right? Wow. So clients where maybe they've always gotten in the 80s or even they'll flirt with the 90s. They're like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting 94 sleep scores every single day. Like this is incredible. Yeah. And they weren't even maybe coming to us for sleep.
Is their readiness score also improving?
All of it just goes in the same statistical direction. It's so cool.
I'm really trying to get in the 90s and I just haven't been able to. Right?
Mine actually,
I
actually, after having had that head injury, I dealt with insomnia for a very long time. I mean, now you should send Rachel screenshots, of just crazy sleep. Neurofeedback absolutely transformed that. So I went from getting 10 minutes of REM cycle sleep a night to an hour and a half. Oh, so, wow. I mean, even just heart rate, right? That it's measuring if you're sitting in, the 60s and 70s of heart rate, and now when you're sleeping, it's down to 42, all of those things are going to change. So readiness is going to change everything.
Wow. Heart rate variability. We love heart rate variability measurements. So that's more like biofeedback. Right. There's different wearables you can do. You can also look at, heart rate variability with different monitors, even synced up with our app. So love heart rate, love Oura Ring. Those are probably our faves.
Yeah.
I like it. So, okay. So this technology you have here, you said you guys been doing this for about 10 years, give or take. I'm more than sure that's not what you started off with, right?
So this is our remote system. We still have in-person clinics. So I started the company. I was the office manager, the licensed professional counselor, the board certified neurofeedback therapist. I did everything. And so grateful that we've grown, have an amazing team. I mean, from head to toe. But what had happened was we've been speaking at different conferences. And so anytime we'd be, done speaking, people would come up and share their stories, but they lived in nowhere, Virginia, or up in Canada, or somewhere where there was no centers. And so we were like, we have to create a solution where people can address their mental health issues, start to work on their brain health goals, but do it flexibly.
Right.
And also after COVID, everybody wants to have flexible options. So the remote technology allows us to do that. So they just, get this cute little headband. The little EEG sensors are there on it. They put it across their headband like a Nike sweatband. They pull up our app, and then literally you can train your brain from anywhere, anytime. You are not reliant on anything. And then we do the remote maps with a little bit of a different headband as well to do the baseline. We get that shipped to them, and they're good to go. So it's very easy, very flexible, and kind of cute.
Nice, nice. So, obviously technology, there's always a lot of advancements. Where do you see this going next? Are you guys working on things to take it to the next level?
So yeah, to go back to your other question too, at our other clinics, we still placed, we have LPCs and board certified neurotherapists placing electrodes on our clients' heads. So this is
Okay.
a really good option for people that, don't want to come to an in-person clinic. In-person clinics are still going to be around, and I hope that continues to grow. For remote, there's just going to be more probably different hardware that's out there. There is a lot of hardware that's starting to be out there, whether it's this full cap or there's some really intimidating looking caps out there these days as well, which is why we like something that's a lot more user-friendly, basic, but still has scientific sound protocols that are able to be done with it. But as far as where it's going to go, I just honestly hope more people know about it.
Right.
That's where we have to start.
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about the science of neurofeedback is so reliable and valid. That's not even where the expansion needs to be. Of course, more research always needs to be done, especially when it comes to mental health. But more so, what needs to happen and what society needs to focus on is other ways to address mental health.
Right.
And so if we start there and start with the education, then, the limit is limitless.
Nice, nice. So the technology that you have here, this is pretty much the technology is where it's at. I would assume that maybe some AI is happening. Like everyone in the medical field is dabbling into AI. Is there anything that you guys are
For
looking
us,
into?
AI is a lot on the protocols.
On the
So
protocols.
instead of you having to have a practitioner that goes and looks at a brain map that, is utilizing algorithms or utilizing their eye to look at it or just using research-based protocols, could AI look at a brain map? So let's say they look at your brain map and then create the most perfect protocol. So then you're not having to implement that as a clinical expert. So there's a lot of that going on, which is so cool. I'm trying to think of what else for AI. That's kind of the biggest thing in our field.
Certainly. Yeah. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think AI, we've actually had these conversations more recently for some reason that we were at a conference and met a guy who has an AI company. Pros and cons, right? That I think it's incredible. It is the way of the future. We are not, opposition to that at all. We also understand the way that the brain works. And I think that so often now we want things at the touch of a button. We don't have to do a lot of work for things. And we understand that the way that the brain works, you experience and create exponentially more dopamine in the pursuit of something, having to work towards something versus just receiving it. So Chat GPT is the new everything, right? That we just don't have to work for a lot of things. So actually, I believe that in a lot of ways, we're going to have a dopamine epidemic that, everything just comes almost too easily. So pro AI, I think it is the way of the future. There's going to be a lot of pros and cons that come along with that.
So you mentioned future,
Yes.
right? Yeah. When we start talking about the future, what does the future of brain health look like?
That's a good
such a good question.
Honestly, what we have seen, kind of the pendulum, I feel like have swung really far in one way, that after COVID, especially kids, right? The kind of the next generation are so overstimulated. Honestly, I would use the word a little bit traumatized. That when you think about historically what a mask has meant, if someone is wearing a mask, it's either Halloween and they're trying to scare you, or they're probably robbing you. So we have this generation of kids who are very overstimulated, and that's a neurological pattern that we're seeing in youth. So the pendulum has swung really far in one direction, that we are overstressed and we are overstimulated. And I believe, though, that a lot of people are looking for something more natural, that historically medication has kind of been king, that it's medication or bust. And we really do see people searching for more natural forms of wellness and health. And I believe that neurofeedback is on the cutting edge of that, like what you're doing, right? This more natural form of medicine. So I really do think that as the pendulum kind of swings back towards that, people are looking for different answers.
Right.
On that note too, I think that we just need insurance companies to start to, pay practitioners across the board,
Yes.
just like chiropractor, just like anything else where
Right.
you have to make it accessible to everybody. I can't tell you how many people we do pro bono, or we're finding funding, or we're working with nonprofits because we want to be able to help everybody. But there's a lot of people that, they have to use their insurance. And so we have to be able to expand other ways of health from an insurance standpoint as well.
So you just mentioned about working with nonprofits and certain things. Like, what kind of community impact are you guys having with what you're doing?
Yeah.
So we give the first 10% of everything at Braincode Centers back to different nonprofit organizations. Because we have a big heart for first responders, there's a lot of first responder organizations that we typically are donating to. And that's a really big heart for us. But usually each couple years, we'll pick a handful of organizations that we're really passionate about. We also love adoption, like kids in the adoptive and foster care situation. That is something that's very close to home. We work with a lot of women postpartum fertility journeys. And so that's become another very
That's pretty cool.
passionate piece of us, where
Yes.
sometimes people don't have what they need to have a fertility journey. And so different nonprofits around that. But I'd say right now our biggest focus, and probably will be for the next 2 to 3 years, is first responders.
Yes.
I like that. Especially as two women, that are just like leading the way, women in power. That's something that's beautiful. Here in Liquid, most of our leadership team are women. And when you look at the functional medicine biohacking space, historically for many years, I've been part of it for almost 2 decades at this point. It's been very male driven from the top. So seeing you guys in that leadership role is a beautiful thing. How has that been, being women in power, in this functional medicine space?
Honestly, it's been incredible that we feel so incredibly welcomed. We have been very, like, all of the people that we have connected with. I feel like the wellness sphere is like one big family. You're
It
only
is.
kind of,
Yeah.
one generation from anybody else. So people are always willing to connect. They're always wanting to talk. But you are right that, a lot of what we've seen is kind of this like male dominated biohacking sphere. But you do have other people kind of coming up within that. Aguilal, different people trying to pioneer the way of going, yes, all of this is fantastic. Women's bodies are different, right? As well as the same thing with, neurologically. Now, the difference is with neurologically, every person is different, right? There's not like male brains and female brains. It's that person's individual, unique brain. We also see hormone issues or things going on in men, probably more commonly in women, but everything that we do is going to be completely individualized to that person. But honestly, it's incredible. We feel welcomed by everyone, and we're here for all ships rise, right? That we believe that there's room for everybody. Let's do it together, as we all have a similar goal of making people well and giving people information, which is why Rachel and I love to travel and to speak and to essentially give away intellectual property, because not even enough people know what their options are.
Right, right. So right now we have this big movement going on called the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again.
Yes.
What's your input on it?
I'm so excited about it.
Yes.
Just little things like cleaning up the additives in the food, getting rid of dyes, helping people be more educated, because that's the biggest thing is people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And I think when we're in the wellness space, right, like talking to you, talking to your buddies, we all speak the same language. So
Right.
none of that's new to us, right? But the lay person doesn't know to read ingredients or to look at different ways to help their kid. They just think medication, or maybe get a play therapist or a talk therapist. They don't know where to start. And so if more information's out there, now I also think information can be overwhelming for people sometimes, so you have to simplify it. But in general, like, why would we not all want to be seeking a healthier America? I just got back from Europe last week that I had never been. World's difference of the food quality that was out there. And so you hear about that, but it's drastically different. I felt like night and day. America should be like that. We should have the cleanest food possible. We
I
have the
agree.
ability to do that. Why in God's name are we not?
I agree 100% on that. How does Braincode Centers feed into this whole MAHA movement?
So first off, we actually joke that yes, make America healthy again. We always joke that we're making brains sexy again.
Oh,
So
don't let Donald Trump get a hold of that one now. It'll go viral.
that again, I feel like as a culture, a lot of times we focus heavily neck down, right? We know about, generally, when I say we know, there's a lot of information on food. There's a lot of information on working out, or even just benefits of walking, things like that. And we don't necessarily focus neck up. So that really is our niche and our perspective is we want you to optimize your body. We want you to optimize your health. Your brain, again, your best asset. How do we do that? Optimizing sleep, circadian rhythm. How do we set that? Optimizing neurological health. How do we even address that? So brain mapping, neurofeedback. Now, is it the only way? No. Is it a really fantastic tool that people can utilize to optimize their brain and their neurological health? Yes. So that really is our mission, that Rachel and I have a very similar and combined goal of having impact. And a great way that we can do that is just letting people know even that neurofeedback and brain mapping is an option. We want it to be a part of the conversation. Medication's a part of the conversation. Counseling is a part of the conversation. Neurofeedback should be up there as well.
I love that. So, we're obviously, unfortunately, it's been, very political when it comes to the Make America Healthy Again, which it should be nonpartisan, right? Because everybody should be healthy. But the fact that we're here and talking about something that might be a little bit political, there's, like one of the things that, and this is sometimes a little bit of a tough one for people to answer, right? You start hearing people talk about the transgender community, children that are on the line of changing genders, right? And we were just talking earlier about how in the psychology part of medical practice, they're not using any actual diagnostic tools, right? So when it comes to, let's say, a 12-year-old who wants to play on the other side of the fence, change their gender from male to female or from female to male, how does brain mapping play a part into what's happening in their brain?
That's a big question. And yes, I can see there's so many different opinions on that. My first thought is the family system. Now, this is the counselor side of me, right? But looking a lot deeper in why does that kid want to change in the first place and starting there? And so if you could look at the brain all day long, but ultimately, if there's some sort of decision being made, where does that line get towed? I mean, ultimately, as a mom, as a parent, if my 8-year-old, my 12-year-old came to me and was like, I just really feel like, I need to start doing whatever it is, drugs, I need to become this. Like, as parents, we're going to be a sounding board to help them understand, like, your brain is in a critical developmental period.
Right.
Making huge life decisions when you're that young can't take backsies on some of these decisions. And so usually a 12-year-old's not going to run to the doctor and start to talk about this. There's some sort of family system that's involved in that decision making, whether they're encouraging it or against it or what have you. I would start there. If there's some sort of reservation, how then, does a parent support them? Just like you would if it's any other life decision that a 12-year-old's trying to make. But my first thought is looking at the family system, because you got to start there if you're going to look at the brain.
I completely agree with you. I also would look at a lot of education, right? And education, like you said, is nonpartisan. Let's look at the organ that we're talking about, right? As a lot of times, I am making a generalization. There's other things going on, as we have treated a lot of kids in similar situations. There's anxiety, there's depression, there's confidence issues also happening. Maybe let's address some of those things first. Not to say that we're not going to end up at the same place. The brain doesn't fully develop until someone's around 25 years old. Men even sometimes a little bit later. So if we are making major life decisions, I mean, even we're talking about voting, we're talking about the ability to smoke, we're talking about the ability to drink. We're adding those things in before someone's brain has had the ability to fully develop.
Right.
So it's not to say that we're not going to maybe end up at the same place at the end anyways. Let's start with some education. Let's treat all of the other underlying things possibly that are happening that could possibly be adding into that decision-making process. And then if we end up at the same place, we've probably checked a lot of other things before then. versus I do think there in some ways is a push to go straight there. How do we make that a longer process to support these kids?
All right. So we're talking about kids. We're talking about community. The other topic I want to talk about, and this is something that we're pretty big on, is cultural relevance, right? Bringing certain things to other communities that really haven't had access to a lot of these biohacking, functional medicine, modalities that are out there. So, with what you guys do, what have you seen when it comes to the different cultures that are out there? The Black and Brown community, the Latino community, Caucasian communities. Like, everyone has something different going on, especially when they're coming from specific communities.
Yes, as far as are you talking more about like what do we see from symptomology standpoint or just like kind of
Yeah, I mean, what we could start off with there, and then see kind of like treatment wise, what they have access to.
Yeah, I mean, I do think back to the insurance question, I think access sometimes goes down, right? If it's limited to insurance, depending on what the socioeconomic status is of that. Neurofeedback, your health in general is a huge investment. And right now, biohacking in a nutshell, peptides, brain mapping, neurofeedback, talk therapy sometimes if you're not in network to get a good therapist, it's all out of pocket.
Right.
And that creates major limitations for people, especially with lower socioeconomic statuses. And so, while yes, we see all demographics come across Braincode centers, I would definitely say, there are a lot of people that struggle or they have to save up a lot of money. Now, what is interesting, and my husband's kind of the silent CFO of the company, we are not working with like top-notch. People think like the only people that are able to do Braincode centers are people that, have all the money in the world. That's actually not it. We're reaching people that are desperate for relief. They've
Wow.
tried everything. So they are, saving, scraping together money. We are also, we have different plans that we can put people on that are very affordable. So we will bend over backwards to make sure that this is accessible. But yeah, a lot of our population is kind of just I'd say blue collar.
Oh
like
my gosh, absolutely. Yeah. Also, I was thinking, so there's a book called A Symphony in the Brain, and I believe it was in the 70s in New York. They decided to do this study with neurofeedback where they went to these inner city schools, and rather than having these kids go to detention, they went and did neurofeedback.
Oh, that's pretty
So
cool.
isn't that incredible? And now it ended up that, funding ran out, and so it changed. But there's a lot of people, that's not a Braincode thing, right? That Braincode wasn't around in the 70s, but we have seen neurofeedback be a part of different communities for a long time. So, but I agree with you that we do hear from people. So do you mostly work with professional athletes? No, we will mostly work with moms, with kids, with first responders, with, our population, I would say, is, that neurofeedback, they're having to do a lot and sacrifice some to be able to add it into their regimen. We're not working with a ton of people who, haven't ever had to think about money, and neurofeedback is just the cherry on top.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Rachel and I, one more thing is we are very big on giving away, like, how do we give away free information? What can people do to biohack their brain for nothing, right? So we are also very big. Neurofeedback is our number one modality. Setting your circadian rhythm, go out in the morning into morning sunlight. It will literally create more melatonin in your brain 12 hours later. That's a great sleep hack.
Oh, yeah.
So we also talk about a lot of things that will cost you no money that you can start utilizing to help create different neural pathways right away.
Yeah, these things are definitely very important.
Yeah,
And
free.
I'm all about that. That first sunlight, you get
Yes.
some of that blue light that comes from it, stimulates cortisol,
Yeah.
gets your body going, and all that stuff. So, as we start wrapping up here, I want to ask you guys if there is one celebrity out there that, and I'll let you both answer this, that you would actually like to see go through the brain mapping, the neurofeedback. Who would that be, and why?
Oh, man. I have like 15.
You can only pick one.
Actually, Rachel and I, we were talking about President Trump today because we were talking about sleep. And Rachel said, President Trump sleeps like 4 hours a night. That dude is lit all the time. First off, I think that dude has high beta on the cingulate. But just out of a sheer non-political perspective, I want to see, if I was allowed somehow to map his brain, I want it. I
He'll
want to
show
see
the
it.
results too. He showed the results on his whole bill of health recently.
That's
Which
right.
is so
Yeah.
fun, right?
Just need to add in a brain map.
Yeah, little brain map.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh man, I this is so funny. My first thought is an artist named Brandon Lake. He's kind of an up and coming worship artist. The reason why is we saw him in concert and it was just so epic, but it was on a smaller stage. So I was talking the other day with some of my friends and I was, talking to your colleague over here, and it's interesting that artists, like the artists that are going around traveling, sacrificing everything, and he's such an amazing artist. He's a family man, it seems like. But I'll be curious as he's getting on bigger and bigger and bigger stages, how that impacts his stress levels and his brain. And I wouldn't want that to take away from the amazing mission as well as just the amazing artist he is. So he's
Yeah.
the first one that comes to my
And
mind.
especially if he's a like a Christian artist that he plays music,
Mhm.
worship. He has the ability to actually bring people into a certain state, with the music
Totally.
that he plays. It'd be interesting to know if, as he's playing the music, does that also help him?
I'm
I bet,
sure,
right?
100%.
Awesome.
Music puts us totally into a different brain state.
Oh,
The
yeah.
only difference is we can't maintain that brain state unless we train it, which is why you can't go to yoga and think it's going to cure your anxiety. It just puts you in that brain state now. But you're absolutely right. Music is a huge catalyst to changing the state that we're in neurologically.
So now you got me thinking, because we were talking about the video and the visual. Is there a way to go through the training without any visual, just with audible?
Yeah,
Great
so
question.
auditory is the number one way your brain learns. So
Okay.
oftentimes we do eyes closed training where I'm sitting here eyes closed and then I'm regulating my brain, taking some deep intentional breath to make sure that I'm listening to the podcast. I can keep hearing your voice, my voice. So we will do eyes closed training with clients all the time. Some people prefer it. They don't want to look at anything.
Also, some people need it. That when people have had, let's say, a traumatic brain injury and are having convergence issues with their eyes, it can be so exhausting to have a visual stimulus. So we'll do the first 20 or 30 sessions, all eyes closed, to help build a baseline and then work into that. So yeah, eyes closed training is all over.
Amazing. So we're going to go through a little game we're going to do here. So you can only answer with one word.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to name a few biohackers, and then whatever comes to mind, that's the word you're going to say.
Mhm.
All right. And you're both going to do it. So we'll start off with Gary Brecka.
Smoothie from Erewhon.
I also thought smoothie from Erewhon because we tried it.
Smoothie.
I didn't try, but I saw it there when I went there to
It
Cali.
slapped. It was really good.
Joe Dispenza.
So smart.
Brain power.
Ben Greenfield.
Relatable.
Introspective.
Dave Asprey.
Outspoken.
I was thinking glasses. Those freaking glasses.
the tinted ones.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the yellow ones.
Peter Artia.
Thought provoking.
I don't know who Peter Artie is.
No, that's fine. That's your one word.
Unknown.
Exit that one out.
Brian Johnson.
Charismatic.
I have no idea why I can't think of a word. I like also relatable.
Oh, wait.
I almost said not my fave, but that
There you go. That's
We're not-
it.
we're not-
said it, meant it.
Oh, good. All right. So thank you for that. As we wrap up here, if there's one person out there that's been listening to this podcast or watching it, and they can really connect and relate with everything that we've been talking about, what is one thing that you guys can leave them with?
Your brain is always, always, always capable of change. And it has this amazing ability to move and flex and get stronger and more resilient. And you can always find hope that your brain is neuroplastic.
100%. Sometimes we feel beholden to what we're born with. We're not. Just like your body, your brain is adaptable. It can change. And are there so many ways to do that? Yes. Neurofeedback is an incredible, powerful tool to be able to take back control.
And ladies, where can people find you guys?
Follow us on Braincode Center's Instagram, www.braincodecenters.com. We love doing one-on-one consultations as well. So if you are struggling with something or you need to find hope with a symptom or a kid or a significant other, come chat with us. We can learn more about your situation and dive more into the nitty-gritty with your questions.
Also, our consultations are 100% free. So it's not going to cost you anything to find out what your options are and to just learn more.
Amazing. Ladies, thank you for having you guys here at the podcast. It was fantastic. This is information that people truly need.
Thank you so much for having us, Sam.
Guys, as you guys heard, brain health is everything. You got to make sure you have your brain on the spot, right? Without it, you're just nobody. I'm telling you right now. You want your brain to be sharp as a tack. You want to be able to tackle things on a day-to-day basis, and it all starts up here. They said it. People tend to focus from the neck down. What about this? Without it, you just can't perform. So make sure you follow them. Look at the links down below. Make sure you subscribe, follow, share, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you for the next one. And just remember, I'm going to do it myself now, so stay tuned. You're going to get the behind the scenes on this one.